Welcome, 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 I think. No, Robert? I guess I am here.
Little goof up, the vacation time threw me.
Yes, everyone, I am back from vacation, and it was a really good vacation, some good energies. Once again, I am joined by Martina GrübMueller.
Yes!
I got
That's
it.
Right. You got it. You got it. Good to be here. Looking forward to our chat today. Missed it last week.
Yeah, it was one of those last moment things while I was on vacation. I'm like, you know what? I just need to take a little bit of break from broadcasting, and it was a perfect time to go and do some my own personal inner journey and work. And here I am back on the other side post vacation and ready to get back into some deep thinking.
Some deep thinking, yes, yes.
So today we have a topic for you. So if you are in the chat room right now, what did you think about our topic that we broadcasted, if anyone's even noticed it?
And somebody say the title, because I can't remember now what the title was.
The Enigma.
Something about Enigma.
Yeah, you wrote it.
It's so good to have a topic, to be honest, to go beyond it, you know. I think it's sometimes, I'm such a rebel, I love to have a topic to actually go beyond it afterwards, you know. Okay, shall we go straight into it?
Yes, let's get into the enigma of thoughts.
Exactly. So what is the enigma of a thought and beyond a thought?
Well, what is a thought? Where do we start? How do we begin to define what the nature of a thought is?
Okay.
What in your mind makes a thought exist?
Okay. If you're asking me, is I'm going to give you just a layer, sort of answer to this one. A thought for me is something that I am, my entire body, my DNA skin suit with me, consciously and unconsciously, pick up from the field. It's almost like I'm perceiving something from the field and I'm bringing it in.
Okay. What makes a thought real?
The cognition of it, when I start cognitizing it, and when I start, then it's just a thought. A thought's a thought.
And then thoughts take on forms, shapes, and constructs.
That's right.
Which gives them a neural pathway of ease of manifestation. Example, muscle memory. So people that are artists or guitars players, you have a muscle memory to how the fingers can naturally enter the flow, which determine how much energy you're going to channel through during that musical or artistic moment where the neural pathways are in full catalysm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where all sides of the energetic sources are catalysts to each other. That is an example of an artist in a flow, be it, say, a guitar person with muscle memory, a martial arts person with muscle memory, etc., etc., etc. As long as that muscle memory is inactive there, we get into what is called the chemical state of living. A thought can come from an inspiration. It can also come from a thought construct, something that is aiding you processing the energy of an environment and then gives you a generated thought that has a deep thinking behind it. Okay? Example, when we say the word love, there's the initial generation and all the other iterations and generations behind that word based off of our filters of perception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So a thought can have a variety of constructs in place. So when a thought happens, a varieties of awarenesses or points of view are generated within that creates a time stamp.
Yes, we were talking about timestamps the other day, didn't we? Yes.
Okay? A thought is a electrochemical electrochemical frequency that uses the body's base electromagnetic frequency as a storage system.
So is it correct to say that there are no thoughts outside of time and space?
No, there are thoughts outside of time and space and outside the perception of what is outside of time and space.
Okay, so it all comes down to how we interpret it, how we cognitize it, how we filter it, how we bring that. We were saying like the thought itself is of electrical nature. Is that correct?
In our reality, when it's in a manifestation where it's not just a thought, where we're cognitizing and doing something with it as a further manifestation. We're refining our awareness of it. We're working with it, whether it's in a mental construct or a hands-on build construct.
And before we do that, before we cognitize it, it is just pure consciousness.
It's pure consciousness that is using no time to create a stable state of focus in which the sympathetic and parasympathetic are not resisting the focus.
Okay. So is there actually, is it that we as the being, the skin suit, are bringing in the thought, or are we sometimes triggered by thoughts outside? Almost like, is there like a mutual co-creation going on?
Yes, and then there's our precognitive workforce and post-cognitive workforce also. The precognitive workforce is aligning the infinite set of choices up and the plan A, B's, and C's if this line of choice is to be followed in this particular moment. And then post-cognitive is fixing some of the perception-based mistakes so that there's a clear line of understanding of past, present, and future and the evolution of the thought into constructism itself.
Mm-hmm. And that is all happening based on the choices that we make here in time.
Yes, absolutely. But
because
there are choices that we make that are outside of time too.
As celestial mediums.
At whatever higher state of awareness we're choosing to emanate at that moment, yes.
Yes, okay. Cool. So we were just saying thought being electrical. And then there's obviously, when we talk about thinking and thought, there's always an association to the feeling as well.
Correct. Thought in our DNA instrument of experiments is a electrochemical reaction based encodement. DNA and RNA inside it has 80% memories, and then their 20% is how those memories unpack and the type of people, places, and things that influence those memories to unpack, uncode, or be non-available, etc. Whatever the particular late state of awareness is required for that moment. The higher frequency beingness inside the body, the daily practice to make the center energy very dense, allows artist type people or people in the more advancing of what a thought is to bring more dense energy in at any given moment. And the denser and light we can be in the moment, the more verbose we can be in our description of the unlimited point of view through whatever medium we're trying to use, which is continued chemical response.
Yes, and the chemical response is that what we call the feeling then, right? That is actually magnetic in nature, correct?
Absolutely. So understanding the difference between a thought and a feeling doesn't have a timestamp. It is a reaction to a series of algorithms creating the chemical reaction.
So this is interesting. So the feeling does not, I think we talked about that, isn't it? The empathetic timestamps non-linearly and all that type of stuff. So the feeling does not have the timestamp, but the thought has.
The thought has. Now, when a feeling of a thought occurs, there's a variety of filters in the consciousness which may indicate order of importance.
Mhm.
So some of the lower feelings may never get recognized because the hierarchical nature of our world is giving order of importance, and you can only divest yourself so many times without having a full look at the subject.
Right. But we can also get actually stuck in the feeling thought, in the electromagnetic imprinting there.
Yes, yes,
Which
that's
can become a limitation, right? Within
like
the
OCD.
Yes. Or any limiting belief, really, at the end of the day, no?
Racism is generally cult DNA and cultural DNA, but it's still a representation of the bigger ideologies running the grand patterns. So there are certain subject matters where you'll have to define it differently because it's such an overarching resolution.
Mm-hmm. And it's also obviously with the raising of our levels of consciousness, we're stepping out of the feeling, out of the chemical creation, and work directly with signature frequency and vibration, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then creating a long-term strategy with it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the key. And then that keeps that chemical reaction memory state or inspirational state in which long-term cognition of subject matters can be really advanced.
Mm. Yeah.
Or an awakening moment, or whatever's needed at the transformation, transmogrification moment.
Okay, there's another thing about feeling that comes up now, but I don't want to go off piece too much. But with that feeling, it's, lots of people say you got to break through it, you got to go straight in it, you got to experience it in order to get through it.
So where does the feeling end and intuition begin?
Well, feeling is still charge and polarity, and intuition is outside of charge and polarity. It's in the unlimited point of view.
Well, intuition can still have charge and polarity in the subject matter.
Okay.
Don't go there, you'll get shot. Plenty of cowboys had that intuition. Okay.
Yes. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so where do you want to go? What do you mean with that when you say
there's a perception that one has to really use it as an observant state? Where does it end and where does it begin? Okay. It's getting you right under the edge of the unknowingness of the ideology of your awareness. Your awareness has an ideology. Can you figure it out? And those are the filters it uses to influence you into believing something.
Yes, which is mostly the programming.
Right. And then the external filters of racism, cultural shit, so on and so forth, make it very easy to follow those set habit patterns.
Yeah.
Because it's imprinted on you through social engineering.
Yeah. So going back to the simplified thought, the more you think a thought, the more you create a chemical reaction to go with it, positive or negative, whatever you want to call it, and the more you start creating and reinforcing a belief system.
Which is then creating actual chemical neural pathways that are repetition with common illumination.
Yeah.
That's doing the great inner work in the metaphor we're presenting here.
Yeah. And we're going to go to that metaphor in a minute. I just want to now, go back to the thought and the nature of thought that we started off with. And, talking about gut, brain.
Let's break down some metaphors of thoughts. Here is a thought. Everyone's had to do this. I think, therefore I am. Okay, so a state of awareness is presented to you in a choice. Is it a duh moment, an aha moment, I don't get it moment?
Well, for me, it's a meme.
It is a meme, but before there was a meme, it wasn't a meme. It was a state. Are you aware or not?
Mm.
And our perception of a question that's a rhetorical, that's not supposed to be answered, but it's answered internally to you, made people think of what awareness was, because they were never allowed that before.
Yes, because obviously it is linked to choice, isn't it? Choice is awareness.
Right.
Who has choice? Yeah.
Right. The I think, therefore I am.
Understands choice. Yeah.
Meaning people had to go beyond the belief system of the narratives of the various religions of the era and discover on their own, is that real for me?
Mm-hmm. So that would still be a thought that is within the binary coding, right? With the off switch button. Yes, no, right, wrong. That's almost can we say the old way of thinking?
Yes, but in the old way of thinking, it allowed for analog inspirational moments of master pattern recognition. And we're still going to get that in the future. It's a matter of the mechanical way it comes into us.
Well, and is it also a matter of the domination control system of the algorithms and all of that?
Yep, absolutely.
Because basically what you're saying is we need to get rid of the algorithm. And
yes.
Exactly, the binary, the zeros and the ones and all of that, which, we come to that with a machine in a minute, and then actually go beyond that. So what is that beyond? What does that look like?
Quantum computing. We're already quantum computers at many different levels of experiences. There are algorithms are run that determine the encodement of light, chemical and non-chemical, that is creating a lineage in a time-space location with a stamp that is ongoing in the ever-present moment, which is recorded in the Akashic record. So thoughts are linear and non-linear at the same time, allowing us to be the past, present, and future simultaneously existing.
Yes. And this is where, again, choice comes in at the level of responsibility of your awareness.
And electrical thinking is part of simultaneous existing. The electrical state of your awareness that is allowing us to create this conversation about awareness.
Yeah, because it's everything about manifestation, isn't it? This is about the living matter, if you wish. Yeah.
It's always been about what you can manifest in your now what moment.
Exactly.
And once you realize you have the power, now what are you going to do with it? Now what?
Yeah.
Okay? You have that power of the God source being inside you. Where do you start with it? What's your responsibilities to start with? That's how powerful a thought can be.
Well, also, what's your desire, right? What's your ideas and stuff like that?
Wants, needs, and desires are the hierarchical system of self-nurturing.
Yes. You don't talk about desire when you're still in a place of sucky, and.
Well, you can. There's a lot of people that desire to meeting that right, Mr. Right or Mr. Wrong, or Mrs. Right or Mrs. Wrong.
It's an interesting energy desire, to be honest, because it's not a word that I would have translated. If I think about it in German, I can't even think about it. But because it's a bit like pleasure, and fun. And at the beginning, when you come through this programming and everything, these are the energies that are the last thing you think about. But let's go back to
is desire a thought?
Is desire a thought?
No, it's a construct you've created long ago with many thoughts to make it easy to occupy your time with the desire.
Yeah, does it come from methodology? Is it a remnants of methodology?
Myth and method, and the method of myth.
We need to talk about that separately because there's something about myth. Okay, yeah.
Because it's a construct in which makes it easy to occupy yourself with memories working in the construct of the myth or
Doesn't every thought turn into a construct at some stage?
No, they go to a construct for easy resolution, so your brain isn't resolving it for you. That's why we make thought constructs. They distill or get a derivative of the final answer of what actual chemical energies are needed to make fund the experience.
So is this the connection with the gut, the brain, and all that?
when all three parts, the brain, heart brain, and gut brain, are all in coherent resonant frequency.
So do you want to say a bit more on that?
Well, that's the biggest state of human awareness, when we're that high lucid dreaming state and positive energies are flowing through us. And then we have to decide what we're going to do with those flowing energies.
Yes.
And then make manifestations with those flowing energies so that they can get stronger and stronger as a thought construct. Example, this show that we do is a shared thought construct. Okay? There's both of our precognitive workforces are doing overtime. Okay? And our postcognitive
I hope so.
And as well as our postcognitive workforces who look at what we just said and go, well, what can we do next?
Yes. I can hear them actually.
So that's higher thinking, but it's still you in chemical thought creating that higher level thinking. That's multidimensional awareness about the resource, your personal human resource department you have in yourself. You have an unlimited amount of thought constructs to use to process these things.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So let's bring in the Enigma machine. Let's bring in Alan Turing. He was obviously the guy who out-created, and the German coding, the Enigma machine, with creating his colossal. That's what he called it. That was the big, huge machine. I only saw a movie, so let me just say what I know, and then you come in with the proper stuff. So I just saw this movie, the colossal, that's what he called it. And the way I understood it was an out-creation of the old way of electrical circuitry. Because I remember seeing in the movies all about tubes and valves and vacuum valves or whatever he called it. It was a huge
vacuum tubes.
Vacuum tubes, yes. And that went beyond binary coding. And this is why it fits so nicely into our conversation today. Oh, he's cute. He was homosexual. He killed himself in the end because in 43 it was a bit difficult. And he was portrayed by Cumberbatch, Benedict Cumberbatch, who's a great weirdo anyway, playing all these things. So it's a good movie. So what I'm saying is, and this is what why we linked it to thought and going beyond thought.
So Turing and the development of the Enigma machine and cracking the Enigma code is understanding the state of mathematics which was existing in the early 1920s. And the Polish person that developed the original Enigma encoding machine used a series of wheels that created an algorithm that then needed a cipher to unlock it. And the variabilities of what you could get into a cipher device, the more wheels that you added to it, made it very hard to decode. So Alan Turing developed a de-encryption machine that looked at math at a higher state of awareness to solve a lower state of awareness, hard decrypt process. Now, we naturally, as human beings, are encrypting energy and unencrypting energy all the time. It's the state of chemical awareness that allows us to have chemical access to memories, as well as etheric and astrological access to memories. Now, Turing created a device that created a hard manifestation of something. That's a picture of the Enigma coding machine there. But his device was gigantic, and it looked at all the permutations that could be from every wheel and then give you the most accurate answer back. That was technically a form of AI, the first AI.
The first AI, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Even though AIs had existed long before that, even like example, a weaving machine that made rugs was still digital encodement, and you could have AIs from back in the early centuries of human beings. And you didn't always need electrical, because most rugs contain electrical frequency, but anyway you can encode into numbers and patterns, you are encoding your electrical frequency into that, which then can create a thought construct that can become artificially intelligent through mass use by many peoples.
Mm-hmm. Good. So that was the movie obviously Bletchley Park. Everybody knows about the Enigma codes. Yeah, exactly. That's how it was in the movie. And I was going to say, yes. And then the next that was in 43, and then they found basically every German U-boat
code everywhere. It actually broke
all the codes. Yeah,
broke all the codes.
And it was only such a small team. I really loved the movie from that perspective. What is possible when you put your head to it, and your mind into it.
Now they were using deep thinking with their precognitive workforce that's looking at the nature of reality through mathematics. Okay, versus a musician who's still using mathematics to create tonations and intonations, songs, rhythm, and songs and rhythm. Okay, inside chemical encodement. So it's just the way we see the mechanics of our thinking allows us to think even greater.
Yeah, it's a bit like a Tesla, isn't it?
Yes, self-driving. Self-driving.
Well, I mean, all genius is crazy people, of course, but you've got to be crazy in order to be a genius, I suppose.
So are we self-driving when we're driving? And if we use a self-driver system, are we still self-driving?
No.
How so?
Oh God, no, I don't know the answer.
Yes, you do.
Well, it's everything takes over. There's no more a.
Are you operating at instinct level?
Yeah, autopilot.
Okay. So what happens when you're driving along an autopilot, and your phone rings and you start talking? What's going on then?
Multitasking. I'm a woman.
Okay. What's going on in the thought constructs itself?
I don't know, other than I shouldn't do it because the police comes. No, I know what you mean. What else goes on? What do I prioritize?
You've entered the non-hierarchical state where the phone call's not going to compete with your auto driving scenario. And therefore you've just generated what? A non-split, like equal co-creation situation that allows for multidimensional thinking, and everyone does it. It's not a split. It's an aha that you're never separate. You just allow it. Your thought construct of driving is so refined in neural pathways that you're not going to crash if you're just talking versus texting.
Yeah.
So the other side of a thought construct is like when we are living with a person for a long period of time, we generate a point of view about them. That's a construct that makes observations about someone very easy because you have lots of neural pathway stimulus between the two of you.
Okay.
Which then creates additional pattern recognition, which generates more thoughts.
Okay. So where does the projection come into this one? Oh, well, it's the same thing. You just project the entire thought concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, onto somebody. So how do we reverse that? Well, obviously with the healing, mastery, and all of that. Yes.
But understanding a construct and some of the natures of them will help you deal with beings that are trying to communicate through their constructs, which you may not understand.
Okay, so a bit more on that.
Well, what's a trance medium doing when they're trancing out mechanically of thoughts, even though they're supposed to be in a no-thought state?
Well, going into the subconscious mind, in a way.
Or what they call the void.
The void, yeah.
The no place, in which a no plan is the unlimited point of view.
So that allows then, so basically the getting out of the way. so that, let's say, repressed thoughts, repressed memories can surface.
Mhm. Or superconsciousness that is not dependent or codependent on the thought constructs here.
Yes. So does that require a conscious choice?
Absolutely.
A conscious,
And as well as a series of choices that even led to the nature of the experience being a potential for you.
okay, so that's a little bit like my hypnotherapy session that I've booked
Yes.
to allow myself to really boundaries down, and that's really the
Mhm.
mechanics behind it.
Right. Preparing yourself to having that shedding of perception.
Yes, and connecting probably to the higher self, if you wish, and all the soul sentience that are out there.
Exactly. Which is the superconsciousness.
Super consciousness. So do you call the higher self the super consciousness? No.
Superconsciousness is a byproduct of all the practice. And is the superconscious and the higher self the same thing? Technically, no. The superconscious is still using chemical awareness, but simultaneously doesn't need chemical awareness to be superconsciousness. It's just what binds it in a time-stamping moment.
Okay, it's the medium for the higher self.
Yeah.
The fabric. Okay.
Where a lot more dense information can make it past alpha awareness.
Yeah. So higher self then is the thinking beyond the thinking. Because it does. I mean,
it's already encoded in the thinking itself.
Okay, the connection. Okay, through the DNA skin suit.
All the data is there. It's a matter of how much the awareness is unpacked or trusts that it's all relative to it. Therefore, it doesn't need to unpack it all.
Okay.
Like if you have a friend that's going to send you boxes of stuff, and he says they're all going to be accurately labeled, and he says, "All right, I sent you box 7. Can you open box 7?" And it's what it says. Okay, you don't need to. You know, as long as you have the manifest of the essence of the message, you have that hierarchical, non-competitive process that the chain of awareness has created this subject matter that's authentic.
Right. So this is a little bit how we plan our sessions, our talks, sort of thing, isn't it? In a way,
they're planning them.
Them.
We're manifesting them.
we're just doing as we're told, right?
No, we're free will choosing to tap into the infinite point of view that's available to us to use for a creation of shows.
Absolutely. So I've got a juicy question here for you, which I've written down, going back to what is thought. Is there a difference between the processes of thought and the nature of thought itself?
So there's plenty of thought before the thought is manifested.
Okay.
So we'll use something like chemical attraction first. There's a chemical attraction to a butterfly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to follow it because it's creating a chemical reaction in my awareness. Mm-hmm. Before the butterfly was there was a thought in suspension waiting for a butterfly to go by. That then activated in that moment when the synchronicity of the butterfly occurred. That's pre-thinking. It's preparing ourselves for unique experiences that are out there. So there's the non-chemical thought before, even though chemical thought created a scenario in which this type of chemical-based experience is going to come through.
And again, that has to be initiated by us first, right?
By you, initiated by you by consciousness, yes.
Yeah, by making that choice. It's almost like we, as the being in our bodies here, are making the choices, and then, as you said, all the workforce, the higher self, the super consciousness gets working and starts bringing us those synchronicities for us to acknowledge, right?
Yes, and Don White inside the chat room is like the butterfly from the pineal gland. I wasn't directly thinking that, but it is the butterfly from the pineal gland. Maybe that's why I chose it, or the precognitive workforce chose those influences of words.
Oh, that's lovely, actually. That's a good way of looking at it.
I didn't make any direct connection to that until I saw her. Like, yeah, it is technically the butterfly in there.
Yeah, third eye. So, what else is there for this question? Is there a difference between a process of thought and the nature of thought itself? Is there anything else we can say to that?
Take the word process out.
Okay.
So a single thought has many other thoughts attached to it. What in your mind? I use a statement. What's a one and done thought?
A one and done thought.
You think about it, and you never need to think about it again because it's in your memory.
Yeah, the sun rises.
Okay, one and done thought. Okay, the moon comes up. Astrological patterns. Okay, those are all one and done experiences. Now, and when you're in a one and done state, what's available to you there? As consciousness.
Well, infinite possibility still.
Hindsight and foresight. Okay. That is where we can easily project to the past and to the future to make master pattern recognitions of the linear and nonlinear us.
Is this also where like treatments to the future and the past come in, where we actually set our choices into...
Which is strategical thinking and allowing thoughts and thought forms to use thought constructs to advance consciousness, encoding more and more choices into any given moment.
Okay, that's a nice one to transcribe. That's really nice. And anyone who wants to know more about, treatments to the future, that's a really nice one. It's a really nugget there. That's why we're doing it, basically. It's almost like sending the intention out, making the choices and all of that.
So Lori in the chat room said, I can't recognize something I have no experience with. Is that statement really true? No, it's not. It's not inherently true. You can recognize something you've had no experience with, and you do it all the time. You just use another experience as a form of recognition from it, where it has still some of the basic essences of frequency, vibration, and pattern match.
Yeah, it probably comes from that saying, isn't it? When the settlers came with their ships, and the natives didn't even see them, didn't see the ships because they've never seen a ship before, so they couldn't cognitize it.
And then there are other situations where, like when true love pops up, I just know. That's something you haven't seen or experienced before.
Yeah,
you are now experiencing as an ongoing process.
Yeah, but there's not so much the thought that is involved in that process. That's more coming straight from the heart as an intuition, as a knowingness, right?
Intuition will spawn deep thoughts, though.
Yes.
That allow you to and then enter the deeper state of awareness. Intuition is a self-offering for deeper thinking.
Intuition is a self-offering for deeper thinking, yes.
In which you create a variety of thoughts that can be suspended outside of time, waiting for a series of non-experiences to manifest as an experience.
Yes.
Example, let's say we're sharing a calendar, and on the 5th of September, the 17th of September at 1 p.m., we're supposed to meet. There's a whole bunch of thought constructs that are making that happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all still thoughts in the day. And are those thoughts more important than any other thought?
No, it's a focus in it, isn't it? So in order to create what you, in order to manifest.
In a focus state of being, we are manifesting and resolving. We're in that remedy and resolve state.
Yes.
Now, higher thinking is ritual, spiritual, ceremony stuff, where we're not allowing the lower thought constructs to act as filters.
Is it something to say? Can we say it's cognition on a different level, where we add a different level of meaning to it?
the uncoding of the energies gives you more data to work with, which is technically the same thing as what you said, but it's a little different way of seeing it as a perception.
So the uncoding, does that mean, is this now the next level? We were talking about the machines, the next level from a machine, from an electrical circuitry into a
Quantum.
Quantum
And
technology.
human thought constructs are quantum circuitry.
Yes.
Now, a quantum machine can create its own quantum circuitry, self-propagating, self-generating. We are self-propagating, self-generating, self-educating, light beings of propagation. So is a quantum machine. It just does it a different way.
So this is the thing what he did, Alan Turing, in 1950 when he did the test for consciousness, saying, there was two rooms. One was a machine, one was a human being. And via email or text or whatever they used, they were asking questions to the computer and to the being, to the human. And depending on the response, the one, which was a human, asked the question, would have to identify who is the human and who is the machine, because it was so, there was no difference as such. Or that was the test. What is consciousness? How can we define consciousness? What is human versus the machine? So the question here is now, can a machine think?
Yes, it can think.
Mm-hmm.
But who says what a thought is?
Yeah.
Right now, it's our legal system, or a series of really advanced thought constructs we all agreed on before birth, is going to define what is consciousness and what isn't. Is the lobster in the lobster pot over there alive and thinking? Yes, it is. So is your dog, your cat, the birds next door. They all feel and experience too.
Yeah. Because it was, the test result would have been, it was only if the answer from the computer was human, it could be even incorrect, but it was human enough, then the machine is the same as the human. But he's also turned it around, like you said early on. He said, give a human a pencil, a paper, and a rubber, and it's a universal machine applying discipline to it, to a subject.
The same thing about a plant. That's an annual plant that comes up every year, does its thing, dies in winter, and comes up the next year.
Yeah.
Okay? That's its way of doing it. It's way of uncoding, taking a chunk of information from a lifespan, unpacking the DNA, wisdom, and nature of the experience, and allowing it to have a series of experiences until it's time for its light to end.
Yeah. So tell me then, or tell us then, what is an idea? Because I've heard somewhere the idea is here, has the need to replicate itself. It's almost like a mind virus or something.
All right, so idea. Let me find the right metaphor.
Yeah.
So there are different states in which ideas are generated. If we're in a situation where, let's say we're going to use ceremony as a medium for ideas to come through. Mm-hmm. We're actually searching for a form of inspiration. Mm-hmm. And now inspiration has its own myth behind it. All of the things that we've heard to do to break states of stagnancy are a part of that myth. Now, in the metaphor of using a ceremony in which we've done the spiritual hygiene to make the place safe, an idea has a lot better chance of popping into our brain and making a strong enough chemical manifest that we view and review it with our thought constructs or perception filters in place, and then begin adding free-willed explorations of potentials, or gaming. It's what's called gaming a scenario out. If this happens, this happens. If this happens, this happens. Creating lines of potentials to the idea itself, which is generating a thought construct from an inspirational ideal moment. Like I'm talking with a spirit guide. If you have neural pathways that make it very easy to talk to a spiritual guide, you have created the medium and the thought construct in which you can see, feel, hear unique, and you have unique experiences through the filters that you've created, or perception filters that you've created to allow the natures of those experiences.
Okay, so how does this idea now, this thought construct, travel? Because so often you hear that somebody, like if you go into the invention, and I can't even think of anyone now, but so often somebody in a country comes up with an invention, and literally a couple of weeks later, somebody else in a different country comes up with it too, right? And a different country. So what is that? How does that come into?
So that really comes down to the fetus in the womb planning. Who's going to be the first to take something as a thought construct, a direct manifestation to market?
Right.
And then the people recognizing the value of it. There were steam engines out before steam engines. Like there was a steam engine in the Greek era, but they didn't know how to do anything with it. Okay?
Fair enough. Fair enough. So it's the
They didn't realize they
recognition.
could have turned into a train. Didn't realize that. Okay.
So when you just mentioned the fetus in the womb process, does this actually mean that whoever has the same idea or similar idea pretty much at the same time, are they soul sentients? Are they connected as a soul family or not necessarily?
Well, not all parallel histories are exactly the same. There are many parallel histories in which Tesla's perception of technology was a lot more prevalent than Bell's. Or wooden ships stayed a lot longer because there wasn't the same level of metal refineries in the United States and the rest of the world, and other parallel realities. Or other parallel realities, the steel mills were solely in Germany, okay? Or they had
Yes.
the different forms of resources. So there's a bleed through also where, let's say in one parallel timeline, this person comes up with this, but that person jumps to these timelines. Is their object still going to come up first in this reality? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But they're going to be in the same historical reference.
Fair enough. There's another layer to that. There's another dimension to all of that. Okay.
Right. And there are plenty of people who have invented things that have never gone to market, which has still radically changed humanity's base perceptions.
And that would probably be because of they've been obviously prevented from doing it because of the
like free energy. What will free energy really do to human beings?
Yeah.
It's not going to take one bill out of your process. Okay? Everything is built on the bills. How much energy it takes to consume. When there's free energy and there's no basis that you have to put energy to get energy out, completely destroys the thought construct model of capitalism.
Exactly. Is this when we talk about 2053? Is this a possibility in 2053 that we start at least looking into it?
It's a little too early to look that fast. Right now we have a big moment and non-moment coming at the same time. For one group of people in the United States that are pro-Trump, and another group of people that are anti-Trump, and then all the people who don't give a shit about it. Okay? So whether he wins or not doesn't matter. The days will go on and go on and go on, and the story will go on and go on and go on and go on and go on. Disconnecting from it at that story at this time is the most advantageous thing one can do for themselves.
Yeah.
So they can enter the state of focus, deconstruct the negative thought constructs of politics itself, so that they could perceive a world that can be changed with the right forms of technology, restructuring the fundamentals of how business is done through the expenditure of energy and the payment for that.
Yeah. It's a good way of clearing out the dream time so that you can start connecting to your dream time.
Right. Once we had electrical, the need for human labor greatly reduced. Mm-hmm. It was redirected into other areas, but the need for human labor was greatly reduced.
Mm.
What did global train systems do for humanity?
Well, it connected the whole world. There was no connection before the steam train.
That's right.
Changed everything. It brought the Industrial Revolution, if you wish.
So what's the next human revolution? The way in which we see things, and the way in which we think about things, and the thoughts we get in the moment, and the choices that we can choose with any thought at any moment can be super genius. What's stopping super genius moments?
Self-healing, self-mastery, really.
Bingo. Yourself.
That's it. It's unfortunately always the same answer. I know I get bored of it myself, but it is at the end of the day, isn't it?
Exactly.
It is. And there's so many layers to that. So we were just talking maybe because, do you want to add something to this before I move on?
Go on to the next part.
Because I was just wondering, talking about ideas, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and all of that. Let's throw the memories in. So how does the memory compare to any of that?
So we've talked about how memory is created before. I'll cover it real quick.
Yeah.
A thought, an electrical frequency, says we're having an experience. It may be an ongoing experience, but I'm going to start a file storage space for it. That will be linear stamped and then file storage spaced in a nonlinear stamp also. Even though they're the same experience, they're just two ways of perceiving it. That is a memory. Chemical creation that also has non-chemical stamp creation, ongoing energy, past, present, and future behind it. DNA has been time-stamped. DNA memories have been time-stamped from other eras of history, but allow the nonlinear perception of these memories in linear perceptions of awareness that become unpacked as intuition. This is how DNA memories can influence us into affinities to do or not to do.
Yes. And then, of course, that leads us to the repressed memories that we are repressing because of the trauma association to it, the chemical. Yeah.
Right. Which will then lead us into self-healing and self-nurturing for those traumatic memories that are preventing the advancement of more new memories.
Exactly. And then, there's also a school of thought that some psychologists, clinical psychologists say you can't actually retrieve any of that memory. You can just wait for sensory input for it to just be triggered, if you wish. You smell something and it reminds you of the old traumatic experience or something, for it then to come out. And then, of course, you've got the other school of thoughts is, okay, well, hypnotherapy is or lots of other, there will be other memory recovering therapies to actually start releasing those. But then the question is, can you trust those?
So those are all filter-based perceptions or perception deception filters inside the awareness that's using its perspective and perception and the filters that are engaged hierarchically for awareness, a journey of awareness, which will drive somebody into charge and polarity about a subject matter or neutrality about a subject matter. So ultimately, one must see how the information can be perceived through the perception deception filters, and then the flow of information at its true source without our filters guiding us into a state of belief or creating what's a belief engine. If this sort of if this sort of data is coming to me, it will create a derivative for me to understand it.
Yes. And then it's a question of, can you actually detach the chemical, the feeling, if you wish, the chemical response to it, so that it becomes just a thought or a memory, let's call it a memory, but there is no feeling attached to it, no sadness, no pain or anything. And then it just becomes a neutral.
Well, they're never already attached to it. They're already a part of it. And it's our
it.
filters that will attach to those attachments. Yes. Even though they were never attached in the first, they're already part of the experience. The trauma has already been a part of it. When we look back at it, it's the trauma that is like the map to get to it. And you've got to go through those bouldery areas to get to the nature of the memory, which is it's reliving the trauma again.
Yes. Okay. And then,
So real quick, a memory has a timestamp and non-timestamps. They're both different ways of perceiving it. So memory is technically past, present, and future of your simultaneous existence. It's our perception of simultaneous existence that will put us into a limited state of awareness about a subject matter.
great. And when we then come into the present moment with it and actually start, can we say feeling it in the body and having a somatic release of it, this is how we then change the time stamping.
No, the time stamping is always going to be the time stamping. You're taking the signature frequency of the experience and changing it, so it's not a traumatic experience, but it's a learned
Okay,
experience.
cool. That's a nice way of saying it. Okay, so you're changing the signature instead of saying you attaching.
That's what the healing does.
Yes.
It's no longer a trauma. It's a healed subject matter that's giving you great lessons of learning.
Yeah, great. That's a good way of saying it. I like that. Okay, cool. What else we got? We got the memory. We talked about the ideas. Was there anything else? Oh, meme versus gene.
Okay, so what's a meme to you?
So a meme basically, because there's so many memes flying around everywhere. So I looked at that and said, what is a meme? And it's just a fad. Could be a behavior, a style, a certain color or something, a fad of a certain period of time.
As well as a statement.
Statement, yes.
Okay.
Yes, statement.
That's
Well,
like a grandmaster of the obvious statement.
Mm-hmm.
Like example, like there's one meme, time is a social agreement. I'm choosing to be late.
Yes. And this gets then distributed and almost like, it's a bit like the idea, like an infectious thing going, and then you have it stuck in your head, like a catchphrase or something, right?
Yeah, like a jingle, Christmas jingle, or something that just stuck in your head and won't go away.
Yeah. So how does that connect to the gene?
So genes give you the affinities for positive or negative repetitious experiences. Like Christmas is a repetitive DNA experience. Even though it was created Christmas was technically created in the early 1900s by Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
By marketing. But it has gone on to represent for millions of those faith-based believers that Christmas is a time of giving or pain. There a lot of people, Christmas sucks. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the connection there. So memes are obviously something don't have to be changed. So just actually, you don't want to get too involved in a meme, right? Because it's a conclusion almost to a certain extent.
As well as a dogma.
Dogma, yeah.
Many memes are dogmas.
Which then takes you out of infinite possibility, really, and joy.
Right.
Yes. Cool. Okay.
So what other things are ingrained into your cyclical experiences? For Germans, Oktoberfest.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I would
That's
say
huge.
so.
And that's a cultural thing.
Absolutely.
Ramadan for the Muslims.
Austrians.
Austrians,
the balls, at around Christmas and New Year, going out the waltzing and all of that. That's okay, but that's almost like a habit, not a habit. It's almost like
cultural gatherings means lots of experiences are waiting to happen in that cultural gathering.
Yeah, tradition.
And your DNA is giving you the affinity to be a part of that cultural gathering that has its own blueprint if you actually go to that cultural gathering out of free will.
So I used to go out of free will. My body definitely, my DNA.
Okay.
I just really enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay. What did it do for you in the moment? It gratified you, fulfilled you.
Yeah, it was joyful. Yeah, pleasurable. Yeah. Fun, dancing, movement. There's a lot going on.
Right. The whole mating dance of the cultures is being right out in front of everyone.
Yeah, supposedly. Yeah, you pick up on that too. Yeah.
Because how many times has a marriage come out of a date from one Oktoberfest? And God knows how many times.
Yeah,
Over
because
the
they're all
thousands of
pissed.
years. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. When those mass cultural engagements happen, those are part of the greater blueprint of potentialities waiting for us to come and experience them.
Yeah. And it's also a possibility to pick up some soul family soul shards, if you wish, and exchange codes, decoding, and all that sort of stuff.
Meet new people.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is obviously part of why the lockdown is such an issue for people. No, not just
they thought it would change people's 1 degree of separation if they weren't out in the streets constantly driving around. It's 1 degree of separation is even more easier when you're in one static location longer.
But they just didn't actually think of what the time getting out of time would actually achieve, right?
That too, that the persistence of people now that they've had time at home, finally, that's what I've been waiting for. Now I'm at home. What's my persistence level? Are you going to go C+ effort, or are you going to try for A+ effort?
But also just getting having an experience of not being 9 to 5, that type of stuff. And I think that what I'm hearing is that lots of people have taken that on board, and their awareness levels have changed just by getting out of the 9 to 5 and going to a certain workplace on a daily basis. Yeah, which again would have changed their thoughts and their thought constructs, their beliefs, their feelings, everything, the whole thing, their ideas, new ideas and everything.
Now, when people create business ideas, those are thoughts using their base system of awareness and who they have been to grow a concept in which they're intending for it to drastically change their life. Now, a lot of people come to business unprepared because they haven't had enough business-based experiences. Like if you want to, go and buy and sell coins, you got to know something about coins, right? Yes. And if you're going to do anything, you have to know something about it, which gives you the expertise state. And that expertise state is a practice state of repetition that has given you regular illumination, and you've created a variety of thought constructs that make the subject matter very easy for you to play with.
Yeah.
Okay? I meet so many people who identify themselves as a writer, but never write other than in their journal, if they even write. Okay?
Yeah.
If you identify yourself with a writer, you got to give yourself a goal, even if it's crap at the end of the month. 5 pages, 7 pages. If you can't do 7 pages in a month, are you still a writer?
I think also, there's a bit of a misperception of people thinking, and I used to be like that too, thinking if you want to create my own material, I can't actually look at other people. I can't read other books. I can't use other teachers, stuff, because it's not unique. And then you've got this copyright bullshit and this and that. And you know what? It doesn't work like that, because, you can't go back to first grade, say, okay, this is my teacher and he taught me the A and he taught me the B. You are, an accumulation of everything that you've learned. There's a thing you're saying, one of your memes, isn't it? You are everything that you've experienced in the past, or whatever that's called. Yeah.
You're all your past, present, and future selves simultaneously existing, with charge and polarity in place, as well as the charge and polarity not in place. As part of that simultaneous time-stamping, non-time-stamping, multidimensional based viewing of the experience.
Yeah, well, that's well said. Much better than I said it.
Again, viewing of the experience, linearly and non-linearly.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Martina, you want to take some calls?
Yeah, let's take some calls.
All right. So, Robert, I forgot to announce to everyone, if they wanted to come and be a part of the Zoom room, Robert's going to put some information up on the screen before. He had been poking me in private chat there, and I totally forgot because I was such an in-depth conversation with Martina. So if you want to join the Zoom room where we're going to be taking selection from callers, right now, here's the information for you to get into the Zoom room, the meeting ID number. If you want to call in via phone, you can still raise your hand and be part of the people that are going to be selected for the next callers that we're going to do. All right, Robert, let's see what's going on. And everybody that's listening in the chat room right now, if you want to talk to us about thoughts, thought constructs, ideologies, stuff you've learned from previous shows, we want you to go ahead and raise your hand, and then we're going to take some callers and have a good kind of conversation.
Alrighty. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt your guys' flow. That was a great conversation going there. Twyla, you are unmuting.
Twyla, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, where are you calling from today?
From Canada.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what did you think about what you heard today?
There's different curious things that come to mind, especially with what's happening these days. They say with the chemtrails, the water and the food and everything being toxified, that it's changing the structure of our bodies with nanotech. I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, and at what point do we stop being human? At what point are we us, and at what point are we something else?
You're always yourself until you give yourself away to something else.
Okay,
And it's a slow process of giving away your authority to be yourself.
Okay, so you figure even if we're infested with these so-called nanotech, that we still have the authority to say no to this stuff,
yes. If anything, if anything, in the nature of the unlimited perception, there's always a way around something that's an absolute. No, nothing is technically absolute.
Okay, so we have the power to say get lost.
We have more than the power to say get lost. We have the power to erase it as a signature frequency match for us. It's how far down the thought construct of erasing it from your capacity for it to interact with you on the quantum level. That's what the contract revocations I created for was a way to cancel, curing, and deleting a variety of backdoors and loopholes for energies to regenerate themselves inside you that weren't yours.
That weren't ours.
Right.
So they're not allowed to do that.
They are not allowed to do it, but that doesn't stop them from doing it. And not all of them are doing it. Okay? The amount of people that have nanos in them is far less than what fear porn wants you to believe. Human beings have been resisting nanotechnology for thousands of years and thousands of years and thousands of years, and it's why they controlled the DNA pool here. That's why there was an Archon grid in place, so certain lights that had affinities to break nanotechnology wouldn't be here and show other people how to do it, or have it as an affinity in the DNA to reject nanoprogramming.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
I would like to change the subject just a wee bit. Can we use, what would be the best mechanism of communication with,
Can you come closer to your phone? It's really hard to hear you.
okay, it's my computer. What would be the best way to contact with the soul family or my own Akashic history, that kind of thing?
To do it on your own process?
Yeah, what would you suggest?
You creating your own guided meditation that takes you into the trust space, and then you using your creativity to write a in-depth journey to trust, and then the leap of faith into the experience, so that you can prepare yourself for the essence of the experience by creating the guided meditation, recording it, and then listening to it in a meditative state. So your own guided meditation takes you on the further journey of trust, so that you have the leapfrog into faith. And the faith-based experience, which validates the experience as real, which does not need external validation. And then that state of trust will determine what you're going to have as the nature of the experience, which will then give you trust or non-trust to continue the experience. So many people get overloaded in their own self-Akashic record reading that they try to read others first. The hardest thing about the Akashic records is reading yourself. Why? Because your perception and deception filters about yourself will very easily influence the information that's coming through. So being mastered in that sacred neutral state of awareness will allow you to innately read or intuitize the Akashic Records through the state of knowingness, so your filters are not even applied to what your awareness is. And maintaining that state of neutrality in which you can tap into subject matters and not have your perception deception filters engaged.
I'm curious, since I have so many directions of a life purpose, I was wondering if you could give me a kind of kickstart in the direction of the best place for me to be that serves the planet and serves more of an ascension, kind of a healing thing, I think.
Well, that we save that stuff for the Thursday shows. This is just the shows just about what we talked about.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot for calling in. We're going to move on to the next caller.
Thank you.
All right, Robert, spin up the wheel of callers and see who is next.
Next person is White Horse getting a signal to unmute.
White Horse, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I am. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from out of state, but I was born and raised in Northern California, Eureka.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, great. Thank
What did you think about what we're talking today?
you. Yeah, various constructs that we create. And I think a lot of the things that you spoke about, really do hit home. And I'm able to recognize better on how we do our constructs through our pre-cognitive, post-cognitive types of what do you call when you learn and just keep it in your self-being,
Right.
something like that.
That's why the daily practice occupies a certain amount of your computational awareness space that keeps daily practice relative to the greater growth. And it's why prayer and self-healing and self-nurturing are so instantaneous game changers for human beings when they engage them out of trust and faith.
Yeah, well, I've learned a whole lot about inner work since 2005. That was my second divorce, and had been working on inner healing. Been following a lot of individuals, Benito Massaro, Drunvalo Melchizedek, and I do kind of a daily listening of a 5-minute talk by Abraham Hicks. But just recently, I found you from Laura Eisenhower, and have been following the two guys on Edge of Wonder. And so here I am. And as far as like going to your website, listening to, I'm going to say about 20 hours of your talks. Since then, I've been learning a lot, especially on inner work. I've just recently started going over your inner healing as of this morning, over the weekend, and during the past. Since then, just a lot of your other stuff. And finally, I'm directed to do your inner healing, which is good. I want to get the silver, sage, and salt little packets made to do that. Undoubtedly, I do take notes every time I listen, and I have to read and reread. But I had a real quick question on languages. For instance, we all talk, and I understand, and have since 2005 had a great awakening on understanding female language, which is quite very good healing, because I want to make this third time work when it does happen, and be able to understand the meanings behind the language and that sort of thing. But I'm going through this financial language thing, and I don't quite get it. Is there like past karmic debts? What's prevented me? Or there's some childhood poverty experiences? I grew up on this reservation, semi grew up. I'm half Native American, and both parents are partial Native. But growing up in that area and having that type of karmic past, so to speak, or what do you call the family DNA? Yeah.
So for your situation, the deeper you go into your faith, not necessarily as a Native American, but as you, the individual being who has cultural ties to many different factions, and accepting that faith as part of your daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly evolution, be it through self-healing, self-nurturing, prayer, or whatever the journey and process is, so that your faith is reignited this lifetime. And those are the barriers that you have inside your precognitive workforce have created as challenges for you, like dealing with a home in the semi-res where poverty was very common, which means it gave you a very unique view of money from the beginning, which then influenced how you would become into business and how you'd perceive money in general.
Well, you remember you mentioned earlier about creating a construct for business.
Uh-huh.
And the thought occurred to me is, growing up throughout the years, I'm all, gung-ho and excited about to start this new project. And then I guess that's where the faith comes in, because then I lose it very quickly. However, at the beginning, I had such great success.
And that is the desire energy driving the thought into a thought construct, but there needs to be more power behind the thought, and you need a more powerful thought construct to process it, because it's giving you the same answer over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a karmic wheel. I'm really getting to it.
So business is about creating a very unique thought construct that helps you create resolved answers very fast, because the thought construct is heavily thought out.
And the resistance is very low, because, the polarity comes in with the desire, which is the opposite resistance. And then lo and behold, after a few days, it's like, darn it, this doesn't work. What's going on here?
What do you do for a job?
Sales.
Okay.
I used to sell vacation ownerships for a long time. I lived in Las Vegas for about 15 years. And that's where I got introduced to it, because the manager goes, all you got to do is be a friend and you'll be successful. I said, oh, that's easy. I can do that. And I was fairly successful at it. Before I got into that, lo and behold, I was a limo driver for about 8 years. How coincidental.
Yeah, I did that for many, many years. It's a very unique job. Very, very unique job.
Well, I grew up driving drunks around, and so it was pretty easy in Las Vegas, with everyone yelling and screaming and partying and stuff. And I was used to it.
You were accustomed to it. Exactly. It didn't bother you. Okay.
Yeah, not at all. But okay. All right. That's pretty much about it. I really enjoyed what you guys were talking about with the constructs, because this whole thing is a construct. I'm pretty much a matrix man in the beginning.
A shared reality rules construct.
Shared reality rules. Yeah, of course.
In the unlimited point of view.
Which is the ultimate system buster to the absolute points of view.
Okay. Of course, I'm writing this down. Okay. Got it. Awesome.
Man, thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you.
Martina, did you want to add anything?
I would just like one thing. You mentioned creating desire from charge and polarity, and this has worked in the past. And the more you go into sacred neutral, the more you do your healing and your mastery, the less you will have desire to be created from charge and polarity, because charge and polarity is going to start disappearing slowly but surely. And it's a different way of creating your business. It's a different way. It's the next level is desire through choice and connection.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's I having my own business, for me that has been an interesting experience, because it's so much easier to create from charge and polarity. It's so much easier to say yes, no, when you have, a two choice possibility in front of you. But when you go into the infinite realm of possibilities, all of a sudden there is no, it's an infinite possibility, and you go, what am I going to do now? And everything seems to start slowing down a little bit. And then you start to create from choice. It's a slightly different process. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Well, when you mention sacred neutral, can you explain that a little bit better? How do you mean by that? Sacred neutral?
So sacred neutral is the same as unlimited point of view. You know, sacred neutral is where you can actually have a thought construct, if you wish, that doesn't go into the right or the wrong. It just looks at all the different possibilities, but it doesn't have a conclusive thought about it, that this is the best, or this is the best, or this is the best. So you might work in your business and say, okay, this is the way it's got to be done. The next week, you do a lot of healing on yourself, and you changed already your signature frequency again, you know, and it does no longer actually work with what you concluded the week before. And that's where you got to go back into, okay, so is this choice, what I've made then, still valuable now? Is it still valid now? Or has it already created a different, you know, layer to it that I need to consider?
Yeah, I've been working on layers a long time. I feel like a huge onion, but I'm getting a lot smaller, pulling off those layers. So, all right. Well, I can combine all this together with what I listened to today, kind of reconstruct.
Cool.
There you go. Have fun.
Good luck.
Tear down those old construct walls and make new ones.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, man.
Bye.
Thanks a lot for calling in.
Bye-bye.
All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who's next.
Okey-dokey. Fifi, getting a signal.
Fifi, are you there? Fifi, going once. Going twice. You're not there. All right, Robert, let's see the next one.
Okay, Yolanda.
Yolanda, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, where are you
Oh
calling
my
from?
God. Good morning. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
Welcome to the show. What did you think about today's show so far?
I think it's all your topics have always been interesting. I've been following you now for, I would say, a good 2-3 months. And just the language and the way you formulate everything just puts into perspective like the multidimensional layers and linear and nonlinear. And I love your lingo.
Thank
My
you.
question is, I have a couple of questions as far as, so we think about the construct and how we formulate certain constructs and how we then tap into DNA and are able to extrapolate data from it and then anchor it and distribute it within our own energetic field in this. And not only pulling it within the multidimensionality of it, but in the 3D as well, right? I always feel like if I do any work and it stays in my cosmic realm, then it was just magical and it served a purpose, just as you mentioned to Martina. So when going into our field and extrapolating that data and bringing it into this reality, how do we get to choose what is serving us and releasing and fully releasing other constructs or contracts that we might have had with other energies as reptilians, archons, and so forth? I find that's boggling to me when you go in and then able to extrapolate and say, okay, no longer, you served its purpose, goodbye. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh. See, the nature of the question is why. As why do these other things exist that we have to go through as barriers and natures of experiences?
Or
So
lessons?
whatever you want to call them, the why is the nature of the question, actually. And the answer is in the why also. Why do archons exist? So that humanity doesn't wake it up. Why do these negative systems exist? So humanity doesn't wake up. Why do these targeted systems exist? So for those humans that are determined to wake up, there's going to be something that's going to smash them and put them back down. So that the king of the mountain remains king of the mountain. Until we realize we don't have to play king of the mountain. Fuck the mountain.
Right.
Stop believing in the mountain. And therefore there's no king of the mountain.
So when you go in and say fuck the mountain, and how do you then
Faith in your thoughts and thought constructs that have been used learned and relearned from so many times that the thought construct's extrapolation of the data gives you the correct answer every time and you trust it.
How do we then say fuck the mountain forever versus
You
cleaning
can't
up?
fuck, you can't fuck the mountain forever.
So that's why
For as long as you're instituting absolutes, you've limited your own thought, infinite thought expression to a finite state.
Interesting. Another question. When working with the energy beings of my galactics and my ancestors being in this dimension in a linear time versus a non-linear time in a multidimensional way, I have this this process that stops me because I feel like I have to pick and choose, even though I realize that I am all of it and I'm nothing at all, right? But dancing with it. Do you have anything or any
you don't have a confidence to stay in the empowered state, and there's a worthiness issue there. Can I stay and not compete with my higher selves? It's still about non-competition for your greater awareness self. There's some form of internal devaluation, self-competition process that's not allowing you to stay into the empowered co-creative state and work with those energetic presences, past, present, and future, in a state of continuous co-creative teaching of each other's point of view, which will then change your perception deception filters of how to see a subject matter, because the answer is already within you. It's a matter you're going to see the answer with the right slant to it. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. There's definitely a competition with that, and being able to trust and have the faith that I do have the answers, even when it comes up and I know that I have the answer, I still question it and say, am I making this up? It's my own mindfuck per se.
So I want to bring Martina in here to add her perspective on the am I making it up part.
Cool.
It's a great question. Am I making it up? And you are making it up. And what if that's okay?
Exactly.
Just allow yourself to make it up. Seriously, it's going to change your world. It's going to change your entire perception of everything. Once you allow yourself to make it up,
then you get to make up everything else about your life.
Yeah.
Through the looking glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the more you allow yourself to voice it, even to yourself maybe, or to others, and see the reaction you're getting or not, you start building that trust within yourself. Just by you saying it, I allowed myself to say that, wow. And you start in the voice is going to change and everything. So the trust is going to build through that practice.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys taking my call. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who is next.
All right, next person will be, let's see, I'm going to get a guy, Stephen McElwain.
Stephen, are you there? Going once. Going twice. All right, Robert, let's see who's next.
All righty, Sean, let's bring you on.
Sean, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Sean, how's it going today?
Oh, gravy. It's
Hi.
real good. Hey, Martina.
Hi.
So what did you think about the show so far, Sean?
The show is great. It's another great show about seeing all the integral mechanics going on with how our thought constructs work and different mechanical processes.
So is there specific questions you wanted to ask me or Martina?
Yeah. Well, I got notes and stuff. And
well, we love notes.
yeah.
Have you been doing any of the homework?
Oh yeah, I've been doing all the homework.
Which homework have you done?
I just transcribed a few shows.
Mm-hmm.
Gone back to the Orchestra of Consciousness it was really great having that break that we just had from school, like with all of us here. It was some good
Yeah.
catch up. So like some things from this show, it was just I really liked the line that like just figuring out constructs, and then the level of like how our pre-construct or like pre-birth constructs were built just to have a social agreement, and how I got down like pre-birth thought constructs that we agreed to while planning to manifest here with social agreements. So it's just wild how deep these things run all the time.
Mhm.
So questions that I got, what did I write down? But I got some different questions through time. So I was wondering, do our signature frequencies have color stamps to the time stamps? Or do our time stamps?
Every timestamp has a color stamp of density attached to it. Yes.
Okay, and are those densities based on like root, sacral? Like I know how this solar
They
plexus
go up to the higher realms, up to the 72 chakra level also.
That's super fascinating, because I remember you saying something with just yellow being solar plexus and confidence, sexual confidence timestamp that you add to different levels of experience. So that was really nice to know. But I've had this question. I've really enjoyed the time traveling bits and pieces that have been coming through lately that have been just a very fun to explore. And what really hit me was just you mentioning all the stored charge and polarity that we can have, and that we have to neuter it. And so neuter the stored charge and polarity. But it made me think, can we harvest our own charge and polarity through different times?
Absolutely. It's
And
transmutate, transform, or transmogrify it into something else. We absolutely can do it. We are beings of transformation and transmutation. That's technically what the heart is. And when our heart and our mind are connected with our gut brain, we can take all the charge and polarity from all of our previous rage, anger, hatred experiences and transform them simultaneously into one great linear inspirational frequency or motivational frequency.
Absolutely. Great. That sums it up. And that's so cool. Because I kind of had this moment the other day, and tell me if this is kind of right on. So it's kind of like we're in an experiential based reality, because we can take the sum of our total charge and polarity out of all of our collected experiences out to make one masterful new creation.
Yes, that still follows the shared reality rules.
Wow.
And all the nuances of the social agreements birth and pre-birth have agreed to.
Right, because it's just I'm starting to call them polarity points, so we can just like play with our polarity points that we've
That's a little word salady.
Okay, it might
give it a few more. Just give it a few more words.
Okay, we'll just call it just cast or stored charge and polarity, creational energy,
polarity catalyst points.
Polarity catalyst points, and
that's full word salad, but it was good.
Yeah, like something just instead of just the above the basis polarity, like totality of our polarity, and actually.
Well, the totality of your polarity is an absolute. Right. You can't realize the totality of your polarity is you're giving it a finite expression.
Totality of your polarity is giving a finite. Yes, because it's constantly growing exponentially. Correct. As we move through time.
Yes.
Especially
we copy paste a section of the charge and polarity and use that as a sample so that we duplicate on different densities on different layers how to respond to said charge and polarity, which is stored energy for later arguments and debates.
Yes, that was a really, really cool line you just said with that copy and paste. And I'll have to go listen to that again.
We all do it.
Yeah,
For those people that are denials or river in Egypt for them, they do it all the time. They cut and paste onto their reality and believe it.
hmm
A thought construct that's specifically created to avoid and erase old perceptions so that we lose contact of who we are and what we were.
Right. Wow.
That's why it's about getting a person back into their body so they can experience their sets of choice points that they have to do about themselves.
Right. And totally just getting into self-nurturing, self-healing. Because if we can do it in this body, we've done it on all levels of.
You could pretty much say that what we manifest here reflects in all of our other manifestations. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the real mastery coming in. Right. So I got one more question here that was kind of perplexing.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just if in short, but what's the difference between a holographic reality and a non-holographic reality?
Martina, you want to tackle that one?
No, I'll let you do it. But the only thing I would say is there is no such thing as a non-holographic reality because everything is holographic.
But in an unlimited world and an unlimited point of view, there is non-holographic. It's the void space.
Yeah, even that far, yeah.
That's where the Atlanteans and Lemurians went when they got locked out of the holographic reality.
Okay. So that's how that terminology
So
works.
in the void space, they became their own singular hologram or point of light in a void space of light, of space devoid of light.
Which is
Okay.
the paradox remedy reality we're living.
So void space became non-holographic reality, in which holographic remnants of others non-space-based places could be represented in the generation of light, even though while in the void space, it's losing its I am generation of light to the vastness of the void, until one can learn to exist in the void long term and generate more and more light.
So you could, to go back to Sean's question, you could probably say by integrating those non-void, those void I ams, you can bring them into the holographic reality.
Yes. And that's the nature of the Mandela effect revocation, is bringing those void space, non-void space perceptions, shards of ourselves back to our perception states of awareness.
And I've just listen. Let me just say something here. I've just listened to the Mandela revocation again this morning. And for anyone who wants to do soul shard or soul sentient integration, that's the one you want to do. It's fantastic. It's got so many elements in there.
That sounds great.
So if people are looking for it, we did a show on the Mandela revocation back in January or February this year, as well. I've done some other shows on it, and that show will have a link to the copy of that.
Great, because I'm excited to hear that one. I've never heard that one myself.
Really? Yeah, you must, Jean, you're going to love it. It's all about...
So like that, yeah. That void space potential must be just a huge resource in that space.
Yeah, the Mandela revocation was not meant for everyday human consumption. That was for A+ effort students that have done A+ effort long enough that here's your benefit for doing A+ effort.
Yeah, something wily.
Yeah.
And Sean, to your question, from what I understand, is it can be a resource, yes. And it can also be a sabotaging element, because not every I am wants to work with you in in harmony and in communion. That's why it's quite important actually to establish your relationships with them and offer them some healing or let them go or do whatever you need to do with them. Is that right?
Absolutely. So like establishing relations with them, but also having your own personal boundaries and your fortified reality in place so that you can even work with this system. Or
for me, the fortification of my reality is part of the soul integration, soul sentient, void, I ams, whatever you want to, bring up. That is part of your fortification of your reality.
Yes. Sorry, I got this truck outside on the street that's just
Sure.
But it's
filtering
encoding
something.
messages and lights, and it's just showing you the truck backing up energy or something being loaded into the reality.
Oh, it's been building all weekend. It's like lightning strikes
Fantastic.
and trees changing and all sorts of shit changing.
Yeah.
It's been a good weekend.
Great.
Well, like, yeah, thanks for answering those.
So, Martina, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really. No, I think we've
Okay.
think of anything.
So, shared reality rules. For people that have been listening a long time, I've been saying that phrase over and over and over and over and over until I turn blue in the face. Shared reality rules have your pre-birth agreements, your post-birth agreements, and a variety of other thought constructs that keep us all bound to a global narrative that has a variety of subconscious belief systems built inside them that keep us entangled into a belief engine of how the reality works. It's what limits us from multidimensional thinking and awareness. It's what makes multitasking actually impossible for most people to do in the 3D matrix. True multitasking, where they're able to actually get simultaneous subject matters done at once without competing against themselves. Learning self-healing, self-nurturing is disciplining the self to find focus. That ultimately is the state of awareness in which the super genius and the inner genius can come to terms and agreements and be at a co-creation level where the subject matter and the medium in which it's being presented is easily translatable and relatable to everyone else that's observing it.
It's also where you step beyond the collective consciousness and you step into that super consciousness.
That's right. All right, Sean, thanks a lot for calling in.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Bye,
That's
darling.
fun. That
See
was
you
fun.
tomorrow.
So, Martina, let's call this the end of the show. So why don't you give a way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so www.syncholistic.co.uk, that is my private website. And then we've got the Earth Nouveau Zoom on a Wednesday, 5 o'clock, UK +1. And that is available every Wednesday, where we talk subject matters and we refer to the teachings of Andrew and the other stuff that we know from our previous teachings and learnings and blah, blah, blah. So we're all consciousness explorer there. So it'd be interesting and lovely to see you there soon.
All right. And everyone, if you want to get a hold of me, you go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. We have a variety of gifts and offers there for you if you sign up for the email list. I'm also on Facebook, YouTube. All right, Robert, take us away. We'll be back this coming Thursday for a call-in show.
Bye.